So good to see everybody. Thank you very much for joining our plenary session of the ICC Australia Arbitration Committee. My name is Emily Hay. I'm the chair of the steering committee, and we have quite a few of the ICC Australia colleagues on the call today that you're going to hear from. We have 1 hour and a lot of territory to cover. We'd like to update you on the various activities of the steering committee, but also the nominations commission, the ICC court, the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry itself, ICC YAF. And so we're going to have short updates from each of the components of ICC Australia so you can learn more about how things are working, what people have been doing, and what are our plans for this year. We also very much welcome everybody to get involved in those plans and to be a part of the ICC Australia membership. The session is being recorded because of our Australian time zone issues. Not everybody can be on the line at the same time, so this way everybody can catch up later. So without further ado, I think, Jackie, there's one slide we wanted to show of the organogram. If you'd be able to put that up, please.
Okay, can everyone see? Hang on a second.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Thank you very much. This is just the, for full transparency, our ICC Australia organogram. So here you see the various different committees or components of ICC Australia and the members of each of them. You'll be hearing from someone from each of these groups today. And so that you have these details to hand if you need them, we'll also be circulating these slides with the other information as well to the members after our session. If you don't receive them, feel free to reach out to get in touch with myself or with Jacqueline to receive those. And I think now we can pass over to you, Jackie.
Okay, great. Thank you. Just give me a second. Let's navigate. Okay, great. Hi, so just a brief introduction about myself. I'm Jacqueline from the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And in case you didn't know me, just remember me as Jackie from ACCI. I mean, introduction's gonna be old now, but that's how you remember me. Okay, so just a brief introduction about ACCI. We are the largest and most representative business network in Australia. Our members consist of state and territory chambers of commerces. We have over 70 industry associations, and together we represent over 400,000 companies across all sectors, from small businesses to your local butcher shop, all the way to major corporations such as ANZ and Westpac. ACCI's mission is to mainly make Australia the best place in the world to do business, and we are also the national and international voice of Australian businesses, so we're the voice of Australian businesses in the International Chamber of Commerce, Business at OECD, the International Organization of Employers, and the Indian Ocean Rim Association. So the ACCI trade team is a small team of 3. It's headed by Chris Barnes, the head of business development and international affairs, Lachlan Smith, the Deputy Director of Trade and International Affairs, and myself. So unfortunately, Chris and Lachlan couldn't join us tonight. So the trade team mainly does 3 things. First is the trade policy and negotiations. So there we contribute to trade negotiations through formal submissions and policy engagements with the Australian government. Our team's currently working on with the government on the review of the China-Australia Free Trade Agreement and the Indonesian-Australia Comprehensive Economic Progressive Agreement. Apart from that, every year we have our annual trade survey, which unpacks the trade and investment trends of the year. We recently released the 2025 National Trade Survey in December and have a webinar next week to unpack the key findings. If you're interested in attending, please let me know and I'll send you a link after the call. The second is trade facilitation. So ACCI is a key partner to government in delivering trade facilitation objectives. ACCI is also the leading issuer of trade documentation, specifically certificates of origin. So we have over 50 advisors in each state and territory assisting Australian exporters in getting their goods across the border every day. And lastly, which ties in with today's plenary session, is the International Strategic Engagement. So ACCI is the exclusive Australian affiliate to the International Chamber of Commerce. we're the voice of Australian business in the international fora, and Australia has been a member of ICC since 1929, so we're hitting 100 years next year. So similar to how ACCI seeks to make Australia the best place in the world to do business, the ICC strives to make business work for everyone, every day and everywhere, which includes valuable contributions to advocacy, rules, and standard settings across the economy. Now, arbitrators and dispute resolutions play a key part of that mission. So our immediate past president, Mark Birrell, serves as the chair of the ICC Australia Committee, and our CEO, Andrew McKellar, is an elected member of the World Chambers Federation General Council. Last year was a pretty big year for us as VECI, the Victorian Chamber, in partnership with the World Chambers Federation and ICC, hosted the 14th World Chambers Congress in Melbourne, with ACCI immediate past president Mark Birrell and then ICC Chair Noah Watson opening the Congress. On the eve of the Congress, the Australian Arbitration Committee, along with the ICC Young Arbitration and ADR Forum, hosted a fireside chat with the ICC Secretary General John Denton, who reflected on his career, followed by an in-depth panel discussion on the current developments in global trade disputes, with a spotlight on the Asia Pacific region. Okay. So since establishment of the ICC Australia Arbitration Committee in 2022, led by the inaugural chair, Mark Mangan, and the current chair, Emily, the committee has hosted a range of events, which I believe the committee will inform everyone later in the session, along with the other membership benefits. But just two benefits that I wanted to include is that ICC Australia members get discounts on ICC regional events, ICC Academy training products, and any ICC publications. And arbitrators also have the opportunity to list their professional details on the ACCI website. So in that, I conclude my session and I'll pass over to Daisy. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and morning for those of you in different places. I just briefly wanted to tell you about what the Australian committee has been doing in the past year in terms of events. We host a range of events, both in person across the globe and a conversation series, which is an online series of events that happen approximately every 1 to 2 months. And when we're preparing these events, our aim is to educate the community that is interested in arbitration, both in Australia and more broadly, and to be able to showcase the skills of ICC Australia members. So we really have that at the forefront of our minds as we're organising the events. Briefly, I'm just going to run through the events that we have held. In this time last year, we had the plenary session. We then had an event during Paris Arbitration Week at the ICC Secretariat in Paris. We had an event in Sydney in June, engaging with the role between the courts and arbitration in Australia with a number of leading judges and arbitrators. We had a panel on enforcement against states alongside an Aboriginal art exhibition to coincide with London International Disputes Week. We then had an excellent panel and entire event that was organised by Mark Mangan at the Singaporean consulate during Singapore Convention Week, where we had a fantastic lineup of speakers and received excellent feedback. We then had the World Chambers Congress event that Jackie referred to earlier. And then, of course, during Australian Arbitration Week, we held an event as well, 10 Things I Hate About Arbitration, which was a great event and had excellent engagement. Our conversation series really tried to focus on topics of interest to the community. We covered things from interest, digital infrastructure disputes, crypto arbitrations, ISDS, geopolitics and energy disputes, amendments to the Australian Arbitration Act, and facilitated settlements. So it was a busy year with lots of great engagement, and we have big plans for next year as well.
Thank you so much, Daisy. We're now going to hear from Mark Mangan, who is one of our 2 ICC Australia representatives on the ICC court. Mark, over to you.
Thank you, Emily, and hello, everyone. It's good to see you. Could we perhaps go to the next slide, please? Well, you just get to see another photo of me and the delightful Jennifer Union, your two court members for the term 2024 through to 2027. I think what you can see in this slide is a reflection of some strategy in having someone based in Europe as also someone closer to Australia and the Asia Pacific, with me here and Jennifer in Paris, in theory giving us good coverage and ability to support the ICC court in its activities, which I'll now talk about if we go to the next slide, please. So many of you, I think, on this call would understand broadly what the ICC court does, which is the apex body within ICC arbitration. I can tell you, as someone who's been involved for the last 2 years now, that there's a lot of work that is performed by the ICC court, and it includes all those that are listed here. Appointing of arbitrators, the challenge of arbitrators, generally monitoring the arbitral process, setting and managing fees, scrutinizing awards, and overseeing emergency arbitrator proceedings. For a lot of those categories, the ICC Secretariat actually drives the process, in all honesty. So, for instance, with the appointment of arbitrators, what will often happen is if the Secretariat has considered the issue first, they will present recommendations to a court committee, which will then effectively sign off on the selection and potentially choosing between more than one candidate. Challenge of arbitrators, that tends to go before a special committee involving all ICC court members that choose to participate. Same with the scrutiny of awards where there is a dissent. Monitoring of the arbitral process, all of the communications you get from the ICC Secretariat, by and large, actually go before a court committee to get signed off on before they actually are sent out. And often we do that very quickly and we will sweep through the file, but there is active monitoring of the process by these independent court committees. And I'll talk more about how they are set up in a moment. We also look at the fees of the arbitrators and sign off on them, and sometimes impose discounts if the awards have been submitted late or there are other problems during the course of the arbitration. And I think that the function that the ICC court is best known for is the scrutiny of awards. And what I want to say there is that that process is rigorous. The committee members will review the awards and comment on them and provide feedback to the Secretariat, which will then we can either reject an award fully, or we can accept it, or we can accept it subject to comments. And but that process is not foolproof, as you've perhaps seen with some ICC decisions having been challenged. It's rigorous, but there's limits to what we can achieve, because somewhat to my surprise, we don't actually look at the underlying submissions in the case. We tend to just look at the award itself with an analysis performed by the Secretariat. And if it's gone to a special committee, there will also be a rapporteur who would have analysed the award and provided a report to the committee to consider. But we can't go much beyond that. So I think it's a useful function, and it's one that distinguishes ICC arbitration from other forms of arbitration, but it's not entirely foolproof. Maybe if we move to the next slide, please. The court performs its role in both French and English, and some of you on this call that have heard me speak French will be surprised to know that I've actually scrutinised some French decisions. Matt Seacombe in particular, I think, might be amused by that point, but I've tended only to do that in writing. So I've scrutinised French decisions on the papers, but I'm yet to participate in a session conducted in French. But of course I could do that, and as can others that speak the language. There are 19 vice presidents and 1 president. Those people deserve some acclaim because they're even busier than the standard committee members, of which there are 171. Every single committee session and special committee session has to be presided over by either the president or a vice president. And these committee sessions are held every week. So the vice presidents are extremely busy. The committee sessions are conducted in groups of 1 or 3 members. And that's where we look at, like I said a moment ago, all the different decisions that the ICC is making, such as payment of arbitrators, fees to be levied on the parties and so forth. And then for major issues, they go before a special committee, including considering any challenges to arbitrators, as I mentioned, any dissents, and where there are states or state entities involved. And those special committee sessions are fun because you get to interact with a broader range of committee members. Could I go to the next slide, please? And this is the current composition of the court, with Claudia Salomon as the president, and these are the current vice presidents. And if we go to the next slide, please, we have for you the court members in the Asia Pacific for 2024 through to 2027. So these positions will be up for renewal mid next year, although, as was mentioned on a previous slide, terms can be renewed once. So Jennifer and myself, our first term will expire mid next year. In theory, that could be extended another 3 years, depending upon the views of Jackie at ACCI and the ICC court president. But it's worth you all taking a note of the court members in the Asia Pacific and perhaps trying to get to know them through your travels, because, as I said a moment ago, one of the functions we perform is to finalise the appointment of arbitrators. Whilst recommendations will usually be put to court members, it's the court committee members that actually decide who will be appointed where the ICC court is tasked with that function. So it's worth getting to know some of these court members who at some point might be considering your name for a potential appointment, as well as the Australian National Committee for the arbitrator appointments. But it's also important to know that court members play a role in that regard. If we go to the next slide, please. And lastly, the ICC Secretariat is comprised of 12 teams, 7 of which are based in Paris, and the remaining spread around the world. It truly is an international body catering for arbitrations conducted in over 30 languages, and the Secretariat itself comprises people from 30 different nationalities and some 12 case management teams, as I mentioned. I might stop there, Emily.
Super. Thank you so much, Mark. That was very, very useful update. And we're going to hand over now to Matt to hear the update from the side of the ICC Commission.
Great. Thanks, Emily. So I think in 2026, it's probably fair to say that the thinking and studying are a little bit out of fashion because most people want things in TikTok form. But believe it or not, the ICC continues to actually do quite rigorous study of arbitration and dispute resolution, primarily through its think tank, the ICC Commission on Arbitration. So if we go to the next slide, for the people who don't know the Commission yet, it was kind of a think tank before think tanks existed. It's been around for more than 100 years as a group of kind of initially largely academics who basically just studied arbitration and produced reports about it. And it continues that task to this day. The size of the commission has ballooned. Now we're up to over 1,300 members. So it's a very, very big organization, which means that there's a very, very broad group of people to kind of draw from their experience, etc. So if we go on to the next slide. So the ICC Commission, it actually does lots of different things in terms of interfacing with different parts of the ICC and the broader dispute resolution community. This is kind of a chart that shows that kind of phenomenon. I don't think in a sense that's really important to your understanding of what it does, because at the end of the day, the ICC Commission is a think tank in the true sense, that we actually just study things and put out reports. So if we go to the next slide. Now, the ICC really, the real engine room of the ICC Commission's work is what we call all of the task forces. And the task forces are kind of kind of created, and they work on a rolling basis where they produce a report and then you move on to something else. So at any given time, it's not like there's 10 or 15 task forces that are active. It's normally, somewhere between 2 and 4 that are really active. And the ones that are currently super active are first and foremost corruption, who started to come up with its publications. One on expedited procedures, which I'll talk to more in a moment. And then there's a new task force that's just starting to get rolling on artificial intelligence, headed by none other than our very own Emily Hay, which I was personally very, very pleased about, and I think she will do an excellent job in that role. Exactly. Thank you for that applause. I agree. Now, just to give you a flavor for what the Commission is doing, if we go on to the next slide, on the question of expedited arbitration, the Commission has produced recently 3 reports. One is a report basically looking back at the last 8 years of ICC's experience with expedited arbitration. And then to kind of complement that, we have 2 shorter documents, which is basically a fact sheet, which is a summary of the longer report. That's the TikTok version. And then you have the task force's toolkit for arbitration. And I think this really illustrates very well what the Commission does very well, which is both what I would call empirical work and normative work. So the empirical work is just studying whatever is happening in the real world. And particularly because of confidentiality, the Commission's work is extremely important because you can't see into any given arbitration. It's easier to look at it at a macro level when you can access the information. So that particular report looks back and has quite detailed data on the ICC's experience with expedited arbitration. And I would say that it shows a success story. It shows that expedited arbitration has really been a product that has worked extremely well. The vast majority of arbitrations are done within the time frame or just outside the time frame, the 6-month time frame. And there's been a surprisingly small amount of problems. So all these people that said that expedited arbitration or doing an arbitration in 6 months couldn't work, I think can be roundly refuted by the reports. And it has a lot of very useful data. So for example, 80% of expedited arbitrations have no document production at all. And I think that's a kind of a useful thing if you're counsel or arbitrator in expedited arbitration, to simply be able to say, look, it's not just my view, it's not an abstract thing. Really, you can see that document production is the exception rather than the rule. Now, as to the guidance, the normative approach, as I say, the toolkit is just a nicely drafted set of best practice tips for expedited arbitration. Now, finally, on the last slide, something I haven't touched on, but
Matt, I might just mention that I was actually on the expedited procedures working group, and I drafted the section on interim measures.
Thank you.
So it was a very productive process.
Yeah, no, it's a very, very good set of publications that I commend to everybody. Thanks. Now, just one thing I hadn't touched upon is the Commission actually plays quite a heavy role in the rules revision. A new set of the ICC rules are slated to come out on the 1st of June of this year. I think it's an improvement, but it is evolution rather than revolution, and that's, I think, testimony to the fact that the rules were very good before, not that there's the lack of effort into improving them. Now, what I would say is that one of the tricks with redrafting the ICC rules, and it's my second time I've been quite heavily involved. I was quite heavily involved in the 2012 redraft, is that these rules have to apply everywhere in the world. You have to be able to do ICC arbitration in Lima and Melbourne, and that poses a particular challenge because every provision has to have universal application and be able to work under all systems of law. So what you'll see is kind of a modernization, a tightening up, certainly some specific provisions dealing with digitization and technology, but that's just really implementing things. There'll be increased scope for EPP following its success with disputes of smaller amounts. So don't expect any kind of real revolutionary change, but you'll definitely see, I think, a new and improved version of the rules. So in a nutshell, that is what the Commission is up to. But if anybody has any questions about the Commission, feel free to reach out to me or any of the other members. I think we have Tejas now, right? Sorry, Emily, I think
Yes.
you're on mute.
Thank you. So I was on mute. Thank you so much, Matt. The Commission is very busy, and we're very lucky to have Tejas here with us from the ICC Bureau in Singapore. So over to you, Tejas.
Thank you so much, Emily. Hi, greetings, everyone. I think I'm going to take the next 5 minutes just to give you an update of what's happening at the ICC, what happened at the ICC rather in 2025, and give you a representation of the stats and some of the cases that we saw the previous year. Jackie, if we can move to the next slide, please. So first, key updates, next slide. Couple of highlights from 2025. We, of course, now have the digitized case management platform, which is called Case Connect, powered by Opus. So all case management and every dealing with the Arbitrators Council is happening online. We're not taking physical submissions. And as with technology, I think this is work in progress. So this continues to evolve as well. So if any of you have any feedback about not having a good experience with the Case Connect platform, I think we can discuss that separately. Second, we topped the global survey, which is the White and Case Queen Mary survey. ICC continues to be the most preferred arbitration rules. And because we were so perfect, we decided to change our rules as well, as Matt said. But again, this is evolution and not revolution. So again, this is just to meet the needs of what we are seeing right now and increasing the scope of the rules. So I think that is something that we will see more of in June or July when we launch the rules. The ICC also has a new hearing center in Paris. So we had the first hearings earlier last year. And I think the hearing center continues to be very busy. So if you get a chance, if you're in Paris, do visit the ICC hearing center. And last year in December in 2025, we crossed 30,000 cases. So the ICC, since its inception, has now had more than 30,000 cases administered under the ICC rules. So just some of the key updates that we saw in 2025. And now I'll perhaps touch upon some stats. Next slide, please, Jackie. And with stats, it's always funny because we are early of 2026 and have to speak about 2024 numbers. And that is because the ICC releases the annual report only middle of the year. But in a couple of hours today, I think our preliminary numbers for 2025 will be out. So I think you'll be the first ones to know because I can tell you that the numbers are pretty consistent. We've had a solid year again in 2025. So the numbers haven't gone down, but again, it's not really shot up. So in the top 3. But what we saw in 2024 is, Jackie, next slide, please. In terms of parties, I think it was again pretty consistent. We had India coming back to the top 10 in 2024, which moved to ranked 15th in 2023. India, China, and Hong Kong are usually in the top 10 from Asia in terms of nationalities, in terms of parties. Australia went from 24 parties to 30 parties, so it was ranked 19th in 2024. And Turkey again in the top 10. A large part of the growth that the ICC is seeing is in Latin America. So we're seeing a lot of Brazilian parties and parties from Latin America choosing the ICC. In terms of arbitrators, and there's perhaps some good news there, Australian arbitrators made for the top 10 of our appointments in 2024. So we had about 36 Australians appointed in ICC arbitrations in 2024. In 2023, we had about 17 arbitrators appointed. But again, all of this is perhaps credit to how the appointments are made, and which is the next slide. So at the ICC, what we consistently see is that about 75% of the appointments are actually made by the parties and by the co-arbitrators. So the institution is only making appointments in 25% of the cases mostly. Last year, 2024, it was about 28%. And when I say 28%, so you have to look at it from a lens of this is globally. So when we filter that down to Asia, it's probably a few hundred cases. When we filter that down to Southeast Asia, it's probably double digits, and then Australia. So a large part of the nominations, which are confirmed by the ICC court that Matt spoke about, are coming from the parties or from the co-arbitrators who appoint the presiding. But just speaking of appointments by the ICC court, most of these appointments were sole arbitrators. And then the ICC sometimes makes direct appointments. A large majority of them are presiding arbitrators. When we don't reach out to the National Committee, for example, in cases where there is a state-owned entity involved for confidentiality purposes. So this is, again, 2024, but something similar in 2025 as well. If we can go to the next slide, please. And speaking of place and choice of law, globally, English law and UK was the #1 seat for ICC arbitrations in 2024. France, Switzerland, USA, UAE made for the top 5 seats of arbitration. And in terms of law, laws of a US state followed by English law, Swiss law, Brazilian law, and French law. When we look at Southeast Asia Pacific, Singapore is the #1 seat for ICC arbitration. So in 2024, we had about 28 cases with Singapore as a seat, followed by India, China, Hong Kong, Japan, and Malaysia. And when it comes to laws, we had laws of Australian states in 8 cases. And India was the most frequently used law for the cases that we saw at the ICC in 2024. So this is a brief update on what we saw and what we're doing. I think in 2026, the idea is to, of course, Claudia, who is the president of the ICC court, will be in Australia. The idea is to do a roadshow in Australia, meet clients, meet in-house counsels, meet law firms. So I think we will perhaps see some of you. And if you're interested in chatting about this, happy to discuss this offline, which is perhaps the next slide. Any of you can reach out to me at my coordinates. I'm based in Singapore with the team. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tejas. We're going to hear next from the Nominations Commission, which flows in nicely with what Tejas was talking about, the Australian arbitrators being appointed, and many people are always interested to hear how that works. So from the Nominations Commission, we have Amanda Lees to tell us more.
Thanks very much, Emily. Perhaps if we can move to the next slide. So then the composition of the Nominations Commission has also changed. It was refreshed in the middle of last year. So 3 of us are the same. It's myself, Simon Greenberg, and Andrew Battison. And we've got 3 new members. So Glenn in Hong Kong, Robert Heath in Melbourne, and Chester Brown in Sydney. So there's a combination, obviously, of past experience on the committee and some new members as well. And it's particularly good to have someone from Hong Kong, because we do sometimes get approached in relation to arbitrations seated in Hong Kong. So if we turn to the next slide. So what happens? Generally, we get a letter on a Friday. Often it's European time, so quite late in Singapore or Australia, but it depends. The letter normally goes to Jackie and to Simon, and the Secretariat basically approaches us and usually another national committee to propose arbitrators. Mostly, as you would have seen from the statistics that Tejas just put up, they're usually for sole arbitrator appointments and occasionally for presiding arbitrator appointments. And in the 4 years or so that I've been on the committee, I've never seen one for a co-arbitrator. And as you saw, there's very few co-arbitrator appointments done through the National Committee process. We have a very short time frame to respond. It's normally about a week. We're given various criteria. Things like, the sector, the sort of experience required. Often we're asked to have put forward people who actually have experience already sitting as arbitrator in ICC arbitrations, or if not experience in ICC arbitrations, experience sitting as arbitrators for other institutions. So for those of you who want to get that opportunity, it's really important to get experience sitting as an arbitrator, and perhaps it might be a little bit easier from another institution first. There's the seat, and so often we're asked for people to be in a certain geographic location based on where the seat is. The applicable law, so ask for people with experience in that, and also sometimes, the parties have agreed for various criteria. So recently we were approached and we needed someone with experience in cryptocurrency disputes, for example. Now, we're not allowed to propose ourselves, and so don't get on the committee if you have aspirations to be appointed by the committee, because that doesn't work. And we're not allowed to propose court members as well. And we very much consider diversity in all its aspects. Now, the thing is, if we do reach out to you, please respond quickly. Please fill in the forms correctly. That does include doing a profile on Case Connect, which has proven challenging for a number of people. So perhaps if you do sit as an arbitrator regularly for the ICC or think so, maybe see if there's a way in which you can do the profile in advance, because that often holds things up. Moving to the next slide. So I thought I'd just show you some statistics. These may not be perfect, but these are something I put together based on the records we have from December 2014. Because I think it's important for people to see where the appointments mostly are weighted. And as you can see, they're mostly weighted at the lower end. Right? We have a lot of approaches for arbitrations where there's actually a very small amount in dispute. And I think that's because in the sort of medium range disputes, you often have, or I suppose bigger than medium, 5 million and above, you often have 3 arbitrators. Parties will often appoint an arbitrator each, and then those 2 co-arbitrators will appoint the presiding arbitrators. So as you can see, for the sort of larger disputes where we might be appointing the presiding arbitrator, nominating the presiding arbitrator, is actually very few approaches. Most are actually at the small end. In terms of the seat, you can see the bulk of them are seated in London, which again reflects what Tej just said about that being the most popular seat. We also get approached quite regularly by the for arbitration seated in Singapore. And just to give you an example for the last year, so since from February 2025 onwards, we've had 8 approaches. 3 of those were for arbitration seated in London, 3 in Singapore, 1 in Hong Kong, and 1 in Melbourne. And we put forward 15 people. So we normally put forward more than 1 person for each appointment, unless we can only find 1 suitable person. Now, the reason we do this is it maximises our chances of getting an Australian member appointed. So an Australian or a resident of Australia are eligible. You have to either be an Australian citizen or a resident of Australia for us to put you forward. And it maximises our chances of getting a successful appointment when you consider we're in competition with other national committees, because it's very rare that they'll only come to us. So hence why we put forward more than the number of approaches. So 8 approaches, and we put forward 15 people. Mostly we put forward 2 people. There was a couple where we only put forward 1 person, and one where we put forward 3 people. We put forward over this last 12 months 6 men and 9 women. And of those, 4 men were appointed, 2 women are appointed, and there were 2 approaches where the persons from the other that were put forward by other national committees were appointed. So it's actually a pretty good success rate. And I think partly this is because of the fact that usually either myself or Simon will also speak to the Secretariat, either before putting people forward or after we've put people forward, to explain why we've put them forward and try and convince them as to the merits of the people who we've put forward. And I'm really pleased to report that we've been able to secure first-time presiding arbitrator appointments for a number of people that we've put forward, and first-time ICC presiding arbitrator appointments, and even a first-time ICC appointment altogether. So I think that, making that extra effort has made a difference. And if we move to the next slide. So this just shows overall in terms of the proposals we've made and the number of appointments we've been able to secure in terms of agenda breakdown. As you can see, we've actually put forward a greater percentage of women than have actually been appointed. I think the other reason why we like to put forward multiple people is that often it alerts the secretariats for the various locations as to who we've got available, right? Because we put forward their CVs and so forth. And so you'll often see that even if they're unsuccessful in being appointed from being nominated, they may then be later appointed by the court. We also get the statistics as to everyone who's been appointed. Every quarter, the ICC provide those to us, and every 12 months. Partly that's also because we can't put forward someone who's already been appointed by the court in the last 12 months, so that's a restriction. But it's very helpful, and you do see that the direct court appointments is also of a wide variety of people, and I think the fact that we're putting forward multiple people generally every time does help that in terms of getting people, getting the Secretariat to be more familiar with the arbitrators. We're trying to put forward to often new people forward as well, because there lots of existing names who are getting quite a lot of party appointments as well, which we can also see from those statistics. And that's that. Thanks, Emily. Oh, and I will say though, sorry, if you are now sitting as arbitrator, if you've now had a number of appointments, do send us your updated CV, because it's quite helpful for us to know, particularly if you've had ICC appointments from parties, because that means we can include you when we're thinking about people where we're required to have people who've already had ICC appointments. Thanks. Thanks, Emily.
Thank you, Amanda, and thank you for fighting the good fight for the Aussie arbitrators, increase our stats. That's great. We are now lucky to have with us Nivi from ICC YAF. She's one of the ICC YAF representatives for Australia. The ICC Australia Steering Committee has made a lot of efforts to increase our collaboration with the ICC YAF. We stay in touch with our respective activities, and we've even collaborated for an event last year as well. So looking forward to hearing from Nivi with their update.
Thank you very much, Emily. So hi, everyone. My name is Nivi Venkatraman, and I'm one of two ICC YAF regional representatives for South Asia based in Australia, the other representative being Maria Artemenko, who's recently taken up a role with ICC Europe. So today I'm just going to share some information about the ICC, particularly ICC YAF, particularly for those who are unacquainted with us, as well as share an update about our activities from 2025 and our planned activities for 2026. So ICC YAF is the short form for the International Chamber of Commerce Young Arbitration and ADR Forum, which is the young members arm of the ICC. We're an exclusive network of over 39,000 professionals aged 40 and under across the ICC YAF's 7 regional chapters. The aim of the ICC YAF is to strengthen the ICC's links with the young arbitration and ADR community, and to provide a forum for young professionals to network and learn from each other about issues of interest in the field. Membership to the ICC YAF is free, as are most of our events, and signing up is as simple as filling out an online form. So in 2025, ICC YAF organised several events in both Sydney and Melbourne. Some of these events were hybrid events as well. In March 2025, we organised a webinar titled Moving to Mastery, Unlocking Your Global Career in Arbitration, which featured arbitration practitioners who were once former mootees and who'd gone on to forge successful careers in international arbitration. So the purpose of this panel was to provide key pointers and inspiration to participants in mooting competitions such as the VisMoots and Jessup to perform well in those mooting competitions, as well as to use their experience from mooting as a stepping stone into a career in international arbitration. In April 2025, we organised a hybrid panel discussion in Melbourne, which was focused on exploring the evolving role of arbitrators and available ADR tools in facilitating settlements during arbitration. In July 2025, we collaborated with young arbitral women practitioners to host an in-person speed networking event titled SpeedNet, which was hosted by HFW Australia and sponsored by HKA. So That evening was an incredibly rainy evening, but we still managed to gather 40 participants who engaged in a series of short 7-minute networking sessions where they interacted with a person that they'd never met before who was interested or was working in arbitration. So it was a really good opportunity for people to form new connections. That was very well received. In September 2025, Maria and I had the privilege of interviewing John Denton AO, the current Secretary General of the International Chamber of Commerce, in a fireside chat on his distinguished career in law, international business and global commerce, as well as learning from his leadership insights. This event was organised in conjunction with the 14th World Chambers Congress in Melbourne, and if I'm not mistaken, it was the first ICC YAF event that John actually participated in globally, which made it a more unique event. The final ICC YAF event in 2025 was held during Australia Arbitration Week, where we organised an event titled Arbitra Battle, the Ultimate Arbitration Showdown, which was essentially a series of mini debates featuring 5 different pairs of arbitration practitioners who debated one-on-one on 5 different topics, with each debate running for approximately 8 minutes, where the winner of each debate was actually selected by audience votes. This was the final event on the calendar for Australian Arbitration Week, but we still had an impressive turnout, so I think it's very safe to say that our final event in 2025 was a success. In terms of our events for 2026, we're still in the planning phase, and I anticipate that we'll once again have a number of collaborative events. But I think it's safe to say that we'll likely have another SpeedNet networking event around the corner, as well as an ICC YAF event during Australia Arbitration Week in Melbourne. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Nivi. We're now going to have a little video for those who may not have been able to catch all of the events, both online and in person, that we had during the LIA last year. And it has become a bit of a tradition. We make a little video compiling those events. So I'm going to ask Jackie to put up the video for a few minutes so we can have a snapshot of that. And then we'll turn over to Carmel to update us on 2026 plans for the committee.
Certainly in the cases that I've been running in the enforcement context, we haven't relied on the arbitration exception. We've only relied on the waiver exception.
We're not going to allow sovereign immunity as a sort of general open sesame to relitigate jurisdictional issues that were put to bed years ago.
But it is that interesting both opportunity and challenge whenever you get into a matter that often it is very complex technology that you're needing to understand, in addition to obviously the legal overlay. But I think that is what keeps the job really exciting.
Modern reality that we're dealing with at the moment, where there's a lot of private companies and startups that are in the space sector, as well as state players as well.
This idea that people feel like it's somehow inherently unfair, and yet you talk to a commercial client and if they've been out of money for 3 years, they feel like they've lost more than just, you know, the original ticket sum of what was owing to them, not being able to use it in that period.
Facetiously, this is not hyperbole, Simple interest is something that lawyers made up. It does not exist in the real world at all.
Not uniquely, but certainly unusually, a system of law that is made by the states and could go away if the states chose to remove it. So if
it will depend on the development level of a state. It can come in the form of donations, but the funding mechanisms all raise their own questions. That hasn't been ironed out yet. So certainly.
The extra task, I purposefully do not say is putting on another head. No, it is an extra task to facilitate settlements.
I do think that the common law lawyers are warming up to the idea. I think what the idea is still requires definition, and that's...
It's not uncommon for trust deeds to contain arbitration clauses providing for arbitration of disputes between beneficiaries and the trustee.
Simple solution, the most elegant and logical, is to have the same default rule as for the law governing arbitration agreement when it comes to award enforcement, where we do have a provision. So it's the default is the law of the seat.
Highlighted was that the thing about a debt, of course, is it's not involuntarily alienable. If we have a thing in action, if we have a pure legal right, you cannot have that taken away from you without your consent or without a legal process. Whereas a digital asset, you can.
All of that was basically applied to crypto finance. So you basically mix two worlds that doesn't necessarily seem to work with one another. And all of that obviously is exclusively online. So you
governing law. So what are we seeing? We're seeing a move away from European law as governing law, including English law. That is something that companies that I'm working with are considering very carefully.
So if you can find another solution, even if you take a discount for certainty, they will grow. So
Thank you, Jacqueline. So that was a little wrap on last year's activities and leads us into Carmel's introduction of what we have planned for this year. Please go ahead, Carmel.
Thanks, Emily, and thanks once again for putting together a great video of the 2025 highlights. So we had a jam-packed 2025, and we're looking at a packed 2026 as well. First up on the calendar is Paris Arbitration Week in the week of 23 March. We are finalising plans at the moment to hold the first conversations event for the year live in Paris, together with an informal gathering for those in attendance. So if you are attending Paris Arbitration Week, please keep an eye out for the invite in the next couple of weeks. And more generally, keep an eye out for the calendar invites for the monthly online conversation episodes through the year. Next up will be ICA, which is being held in Madrid from the 12th to the 15th of April. We've got another informal drinks and tapas there, which we're looking to host after the opening reception, and the invites for that one will also be coming around shortly. For the rest of the year, there are plans in the works for events at Singapore Convention Week in August, an in-person panel event on data centre disputes in Sydney in September, an in-person event in Melbourne at Australian Arbitration Week in October, and a construction-themed event in Perth, so please keep your eyes open for further details on those. And although that's quite a lot on the calendar already, as always, we always have room on the calendar. We're always flexible with holding events, so if you have ideas for events, you want to be involved in any of the events that we've mentioned, or you want to speak at any of the events, please get in touch with one of the steering committee members.
Fantastic, thank you. And I would just echo what Carmel said. If you have an idea for a conversations episode or a particular panel discussion or anything, don't hesitate to get in touch with us. If anybody has any questions, we're right on time. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat or to put up your hand if you would like to say a word. in the meantime, I just wanted to say a big thank you also to the members of the steering committee who've been very active for the last year. All of these events could not have been pulled off without everybody's active input. It's a very switched on group of people. We're very lucky to have them. And I also wanted to let everybody know that at the end of this year, I think the steering committee's term comes up for expiry and renewal. So if you are interested in getting involved in the steering committee's activities at some point during the year, there'll be an invitation to express interest in that. So to watch out for that as well if you're interested. Do we have any questions on the chat? I don't see any. No. Then it just leaves it to me to say thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much to everybody who prepared their presentations and who updated us on the activities of all of the various moving parts of the ICC and ICC Australia, which, as you can see, are very busy and active. And we very much look forward to your input during 2026 and to have more chances to connect and collaborate and to spread the word about ICC arbitration in Australia and the region. Thank you very much, everyone, and wishing you a great morning or evening.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.